It is in fact time for the second news video, and we move to an update on Backlash to start off the second one, which Backlash takes place May 6th, which is about a week and a half away, actually. So Backlash is creeping up on us very quickly, but the fact is, the draft comes first, and I would probably guess that Backlash will be the last pay-per-view before brand exclusivity starts factoring in again, which we talked about in the last video, but it is still uncertain, per se, what will come out of brand exclusivity at this point right now. The fact of the matter is, though, Bianca Belair will defend her Raw Women's Championship against Io Sky at Backlash, and I think that if there was ever an opportunity for WWE to make a title change, it would be at Backlash, with Bianca Belair dropping the belt to Io Sky and starting to tease tension and dissension within the ranks of Damage Control, with Bianca Belair, with Io Sky doing what Bayley couldn't, and that is defeating Bianca Belair for the Women's Championship. Because I do think, especially with the fact that both Becky Lynch and Charlotte Flair will likely be scaling back their days and becoming more part-time over the next year, that WWE should be looking for potential for women to potentially take over their spots in the division. And with the fact that they elevated Rhea Ripley this WrestleMania to a new level, they need to move other women up the roster and up their potential and let them show their potential, which I think both Io Sky and Dakota Kai have complete untapped potential within the ranks of WWE. And if there's anybody that I would love to see step up in 2023, it is Bianca Belair. Bianca Belair has stepped up over the last couple of years, but if there's anybody within the women's division in WWE I would love to see step up, it is Dakota Kai and Io Sky, because I think everyone has expected more from them since the two returned to the company in 2022. But I think out of all the signings within WWE since Triple H took office as the leader of the free world, as far as booking creative, there have been nobody that have lived up to expectations or defied expectations like Dakota Kai and Io Sky. But as I will say again, I think they still have potential, and I would love to see WWE actually, if they're going to go the route of breaking up Damage Control, then what they should do is make a story out of it and not just break them up quietly like some thought they may have. Or some thought they may. Because it would work out better for everybody involved, and it would work out better for the fans if you break them up publicly as opposed to privately. But now we move also over to another match set for Backlash, and that is Bad Bunny is not just going to host Backlash, but he will also be in action, as Bad Bunny will be against his former partner, Damian Priest. Bad Bunny's first match in WWE was teaming up with Damian Priest against The Miz and Morrison at, I believe it was WrestleMania. And Bad Bunny carried the weight. Bad Bunny did, impressed a lot of people with his performance in that one. But the fact of the matter is, I think he's got a lot to live up to in his match, comparably with the celebrity performances by Logan Paul. Bad Bunny may have a lot more to live up to now because he is not the measuring stick anymore. Logan Paul's the measuring stick, which is a sentence I never thought I'd say as far as anything wrestling is concerned, because reality of the situation is, before Logan Paul started in WWE, I didn't really have a clue as to who he was, and I had no interest in finding out who he was whatsoever. But I am impressed, and I do think he put in a lot of good effort as far as both of them have. But Backlash seems like it's going to be a pay-per-view unlike any other secondary pay-per-view has been in quite a while for WWE. But speaking of unexpected and unfortunate, right after WrestleMania, the Schism, specifically James Drake and Zach Gibson, the former Grizzled Young Veterans, well, basically asked for their release. It was a surprise because, honestly, right after WrestleMania isn't normally where people ask for their release. But the Schism did ask for their release. It is pretty obvious that the reason, to some, it is pretty obvious that the reason seems to be that the former Grizzled Young Veterans just don't like the gimmick that they have right now and can't really get behind it. I mean, I know that seems like a cop-out or maybe something that isn't like, how do you put it? It isn't necessarily something that should be like, should warrant them asking for a release or getting a release or whatever the case is. You know, some would just say, suck it up, deal with it. That's the part of having a job. You're not going to like every aspect of it. But I can understand why the Grizzled Young Veterans want to get released. But at the same time, I am disappointed that they're looking for that as opposed to having the opportunity to be able to work it out with WWE and where WWE gives them back their former gimmick, especially if you go back to the previous news video with the fact that Joe Gacy is being considered for a call-up, unless the entirety of the Schism is also being considered to be called up, there is absolutely no reason why WWE should not consider, at least, giving Zach Gibson and James Drake back their old gimmick. Because if they'd be more comfortable going back to their old gimmick and not having to talk in, you know, riddles and mind games and play and be in a position that they don't want to be in, if you're going to consider bringing up the leader of the faction, at the least you could do is also consider giving the people that have wanted their gimmick back. But the fact of the matter is, as Twitter says, it seems like Zach Gibson and James Drake were denied their release and are set to sit out the remainder of their contracts, which is unfortunate, but WWE's loss is another tag team division's gain because it is unquestionable that if the Grizzled Young Veterans go back to the Indies and work outside of WWE, they will give any tag team division an upgrade because that is exactly what they do. They are that damn good of a team that they are definitely going to give anywhere they go a boost in the tag team division. With that being said, we move over to Nigel McGuinness, who is recently signed with AEW, and Nigel spoke about the possibility of returning to the ring. This excerpt comes from Fightful Select, and Nigel basically said he doesn't feel comfortable getting back in the ring because he doesn't know how his body will handle getting back in the ring. That's number one. And number two, he doesn't want to, even though he would love to compete at Wembley Stadium, and he puts over the legacy of Wembley and the importance of competing at Wembley, he says AEW has so many potentially great stars that could occupy a spot at Wembley that he would not want to take a spot away from somebody who deserves it. So it does seem like there is an itch there for him to potentially return, but he's valuing his health more than valuing one last go of things, which I can respect, but at the same time, I would love to see Nigel go out on his terms, if it is at all possible. The only thing I want to say about this next news story is that I think it should have been announced after the draft, not before it, because it would have made more sense if you somehow got Roman drafted to SmackDown exclusively. It would have made more sense if Roman was exclusive to SmackDown like Brock Lesnar was when he won the WWE title in the summer of 2002, and that caused the introduction of the World Heavyweight title in 2002. I don't know how you would have had Roman get exclusive to SmackDown, but if Roman somehow became exclusive to SmackDown, that would have made more sense for the introduction of a new title. Even though, if you look at it from the other perspective, WWE basically admitted that they made a mistake giving Roman both belts last night on Raw with the introduction of the new World Heavyweight Championship, which is a Raw exclusive title now, and Roman is exclusive to SmackDown. So there's that. But it is unclear how the new champion will be crowned. All we do know is that the new champion will be crowned at the end of May. I believe it's May 26th, May 27th. I think it's May 27th. Yes, May 27th at Night of Champions in Saudi Arabia. It's going to be a busy couple of days because at the end of the month, it's Impact Under Siege on May 26th, Night of Champions on May 27th, Double or Nothing on May 28th, and NXT Battleground on May 28th as well. So it's going to be a very busy weekend, Memorial Day weekend at the end of May. But I do agree with the introduction of a new world title. I just don't know that it was the best way to do it. That's all I got to say. But we will see what happens at Night of Champions in Saudi Arabia and who will become the new champion. I think we'll break that down, what I think WWE should do with the world title on Sunday. But I think somebody like Seth Rollins, maybe Bobby Lashley, somebody who deserves to be back in the world title picture, could potentially be a viable first champion. Maybe Cody Rhodes. I honestly don't think it'll be Cody Rhodes because I think he has business to take care of with Brock Lesnar first. And also he may want to, it's also possible in the draft, Cody could be drafted to SmackDown. Just saying, to continue his feud with Roman Reigns. Or to revisit his feud with Roman Reigns. But that's just my opinion. Either way, I think somebody like Seth Rollins could be a viable person to carry that first world title, be the first world heavyweight champion and carry that championship into some stability and set a solid foundation for that belt. Either way, the last news story is that CM Punk was backstage at Raw last night, not putting out feelers to come back. It seems like Punk was making amends. Apparently, according to reports, Punk was made amends backstage with Triple H, The Miz, and a few others. He was seen talking to Tamina backstage as well, but he made amends with The Miz, who he had some beef with on social media over the last year or so, and he was talking to Triple H. Punk was also asked to leave by Vince McMahon, or was instructed to be removed from the arena by Vince McMahon, because Punk is an AEW contracted employee. And with the fact that he was backstage at Raw, it's kind of an iffy situation where they could be, there could be like tampering claims. There could be, claims of this or claims of that. I respect Punk for going to WWE and trying to make amends with people within the company. I respect him for doing that and being a bigger man. I know he had ill will towards WWE and a lot of the people there. And I just hope that maybe this changes the opinion that people within that company have of CM Punk, because it's not always easy to be the bigger person and apologize and attempt to make amends and admit you were wrong. And maybe this will set the stage for what we could see with Punk making amends with people in AEW. But I do hope, from my standpoint, I do hope that this allows Punk to eventually leave wrestling on his terms as opposed to on a sour note. With that being said, though, that is it for the news, and I will see you in the next